It wasn't as if Twilight was the only one awake at this hour, of course. Some denizens of Ponyfield rose earlier than others, but most of those in town stayed within their homes or workplaces until the sun had fully risen. Of her friends, Applejack rose when the need to work overcame the last lingering desire for sleep. Or rather, she slept when her body's need for rest finally overwhelmed the drive to work. Even after acknowledging her inability to do everything by herself, the mayor often greeted Celestia and Luna in turn for several days before some point finally stopped her, typically by placing something too solid to push in front of the hard head and waiting for the exhausted effort to sleep into snoring on the spot. Fluttershy had to deal with her current flock, and at any given moment, a good part of it would be nocturnal. Twilight had suspected the real reason the Pegasus allowed her mane to obscure her eyes, so as nobody could tell when she was catching an emergency nap. She was up all hours on any given day and night, and often beyond. It had to catch up with her eventually. But Twilight had never so much as a yawn, and getting a word of complaint was a complete loss. Fluttershy being so very sorry, I'm so weak for needing sleep. Please don't hate me for it. Considerably more likely. Rarity's inspirations frequently would not allow her the comfort of a bed. Sleep mask, silk mattress, down sheets, thread count reaching to 5 digits, until every last one was at least sketched into a less tenuous existence. Or patterned or sewn occasionally a dozen times before she was satisfied, or collapsed with a horn against the sewing machine, whichever came first. Twilight had walked in on her one morning to find her in that state, with the machine surrounded by her signature soft blue glow still running, dreamcasting, a sign that a unicorn had pushed herself past the limits to the point where subconscious took over and started implementing designs of its own. From all evidence, Rarity had been dreaming of spirals. None of those designs had ever seen the light of boutique's windows. Rainbow Dash could be counted on for sleep. Any hour, any day, any occasion. And the more said occasion was, the better it was for napping, though. How does one develop the skill to clear the sky in 10 seconds flat? By never doing it in the originally allotted 2 hours. It was an open secret around Pineville that there were pillows in strategic locations just about everywhere, while never too close to the rubber balls and eye patches. As for the last, there was a light on within the back room of Shikuku Corner, with Twilight was slinking behind, still trying to stay out of sight. It wasn't that there were any other purple alicorns about at this hour. This was hardly an unusual event. Ponies expected to get their baked goods within minutes of venturing outside, and any establishment not willing to serve every hour of the day was begging for a short lifespan, and a former owner seeking a job in weather manipulation. Manhattan, notorious for never sleeping, Applejack had snoring, at least these Jews silted around, and pioneered the 24-hour wait of fresh bread, and other cities have followed suit. Pineville didn't have enough night traffic to justify that kind of business yet, so the cakes went to small pound pattern. Bread rises with Celestia, or else. There was a view of pink through the glass, caught Twilight's eye, mostly because it had been a view, and not a glimpse or a sudden flash. This had lasted long enough only to register and get filed under unusual events. Veritex is out before something horrible, possibly involving miracles, happens. She reluctantly turned. She never knew when she was going to get here, only that it would leave her either smiling, with a pounding migraine, or in extreme cases, both. It peeked through the silence pane. Pinkie Pie, of course, alone, was a bit of a surprise. She really expected the cakes to be awake and fully immersed in their craft. And art and science was still hadn't reached the PhD stage of getting defrosting even, and moving. Carefully. No plonking. The word for that four-hoof tap Pinkie often caught in. Till I had been surprised to find that there was one. No near rainbow speed sprint from station to station. Instead, hyperactive Earth Pony was trotting at a measured pace between her self-given assignments. Ingredients were pressed tightly between front hooves. Measuring cups, gently lifted by the teeth, and tilted at calculated angles for exact measures of time. Twilight could easily imagine Pinkie's train of thought, a prospect that normally left her shaking. And went as simple as 1, 2, 3, next. Scoop, pour, mix. Stir for 1, 2, 3, 4, next. Measure check. Allow contents of train. Ices back to the bowl. Move the oven. Pull the protective heat covers over mouth. Inside cover says bugging out of nowhere because of a weirdly calm Pinkie remains Pinkie. Place the tray in, remove the whole tray of teeth, carry to the display plate, shake muffins loose so they will create a pyramid. 1, 2, 3, stop it, look directly at me. I'm Twilight! It was a whisper. Not a stage the town square can you hear me or main Philadelphia whisper, a real one. You come here if you promise to be careful. The door's not locked. We did block the mire pool properly, right? Well, inside was better for not being spotted than out. Pinkie had no idea what she had been up to, she thought. It was Pinky. Being sure about anything generally wasn't Twilight's best bet, so he went in. Pinky smiled at her and nodded, and then continued her careful, measured, precise ballet among the ingredients. More smells wafted. Every last one of their sources remained unconsumed. Twilight was beginning to feel somewhat unnerved. Pinky? Yes! Turn, lift, crack eggs between teeth so that none of the cell went into the bowl. Mix. Twilight heard a lot of talk about the inherent limitations of mandible dexterity from her instructors in magic kindergarten. None of it seemed to exist here. Where are the cakes? Is that something only the real Pinky would know? Oh, stop it. I bought that thing with Tom. Still asleep, Pinky sought to reply. It was a bad night with Punky and Pound. She got a little hoof infection, and of course, if she's not crying, he's gonna cry just to make her feel better. I told her I'd take care of the morning stuff. Spin, remix, folded nuts. Twilight took the chance. But are you going a little slow? Pinky stopped. Blue eyes focused on purple. Narrowed. Just for a second. It seemed as if the curls of her mane were losing loft. Then rolled her eyes and went back to her dance. Baking is chemistry, Twilight. Do you know what happens when you rest chemistry? Said the bull now, letting us for a second. Rear back on her hind legs, spread front legs out. Softly. Boom! And then back to 4 pints of work. Eat fast, run fast, play fast, bake slow. The smallest head shake. The kids wouldn't let me be here at all if I didn't. She let the unspoken words finish to her, allowed Twilight to hear the ones Pinky would never say. I guess that means to pull any time I do something that doesn't fit what you expect of me. Seems a little bit of a stretch, and I don't believe Pinky would think of that. But I forgot, after that whole mirror pool incident, we had a infection of bunch of fanfics like that. Oh, what? It wasn't the real one. Oh, what if one of them got away? Oh, this and that, this and that, this and that. Think of something original that isn't tragic. Twilight went to once he had to say, I'm sorry. Okie dokie cookie. The dance continued. Get your magic away from those cupcakes. The field surrounded one, carrot, butt orange filling, cream cheese icing. Guiltily slipped back under the display dome. But there were 13. Pinky gave her a look and a smile. One that said Twilight Moons on the receiving end. How many so was it said, do I have to write the princess just because you've been confronted with a prime number? Twilight lightly blushed and sank onto her haunches, persisting urge to look outside for a photographer. Yes, the Alicorn of Assassin, Conqueror of Horrors, part of the team which referred Luna, Battle Discord, free the Crystal Ponies, to get out by herself by the prospect of a number which couldn't be divided by 2, 3, and 6 all at the same time. Equestrius knew as some kind of royalty, all hail. She stayed in that humiliated position for a while, as Pinky continued her rhythmic dance. Lift, spin, tuck, fold, mix. There was a certain beauty to it. Yes, it was chemistry. The scientist in her could appreciate that. And all the essences together in proper proportion. Make sure the ratios were just so. And the kind of magic that would seem to happen on its own. She'd never seen this kind of delicacy and care from Pinkie Pie. This level of rational, straight-line progression while sticking to a decided checklist of actions. Never expected to have this, of all things, in common with a friend. You've known her for how long, again, Twilight? She smiled. No headache came with it. You would think, after the whole mirror pool incident, Twilight learned, maybe I should learn more about her. Maybe I shouldn't expect her to act so out of character once in a while to demonstrate that, yes, Pinky does have more sides of her. Maybe I should figure that out after a whole entire incident where I almost blasted her with my clone removal spell. The gentle silence stretched out as the sun rays climbed the door, raised the panes and let the first streams of light through. Twilight? A rare serious tone. This was a day which was going to stick in her memory for a long time. A very long and stop. Yes? In total sincerity, with innocent resplendent of a field, I felt like asking, where do alicorns come from? Well, when a mama alicorn and a daddy alicorn love each other very much. Twilight blinked several times. None of them to do anything to make the question or Pinky's softly acquiring gaze go away. Awkwardly, well, when two alicorns love each other very much... I felt guilty a joke matched that. Pinky snored as he placed another fresh tray in the oven, took a finished one out, held her words until the cupcakes had been frosted, sprinkled with days of hazelnut. That's not sex, Twilight. I know all about sex for Celestia's sake. You do? And that just slipped out. Piggy stopped again, looked at her, smiled, and said, "Sometimes there's only one thing left to make somebody happy." Got some more eggs. Totally ignored Twilight's front legs, collapsing under her as Shaga's wings unbidden, unordered, completely on everything, stood straight out. They didn't do what she wanted. They didn't do what she understood. And before Twilight could even begin to suppress the eternal flood of who, what, where, when, how many at the same time, any pony I know, every pony I know, Piggy chanted and sing-song, "An earth pony, make an earth pony, a unicorn's a baby unicorn, Pegasus plus Pegasus equals Pegasus. But on any other even once, and if he takes care of races, that other will come again." Twilight marshaled every resource she had left, was required dusting all corners and going together a lot of scraps. "That's full stuff, Pinkie Pie." Piggy nodded. "Sure is, but Twilight, you weren't born an alicorn. You were made one." "I sort of made myself, I think. At least, that first burst of magic that seemed to come from inside, not from her horn. But she told the others that, responded to every coincidence the deluge as best she could. For now, she just nodded. Her wings refused to go down. The right one was perilously close to an open bag of flour. "And I never heard of Celestia being with some pony." "Piggy, if our princess was with some pony, and she didn't want us to know about it, I'm pretty positive she would have kept it secret. Just train of thought." "Ever. Just rumors. But we never see her with a very special sun pony, not even once. And Luna hasn't had much of a chance, not with little how time she's been back." "Ha ha! You doubt the princess of the night? Ha ha ha! Please, the number of stallions that I have been with can be counted on." "Yes, go on." "No, who's at all, sister?" "And we see if they were full, wouldn't we? Unless there's magic that hides that. They probably know the spell. Maybe invented it. They've had a lot of time to work on it, right?" Completely and utterly innocent of the havoc she was wrecking a few paces away. Twilight's brain rebelled. She could not picture the princess as having sex. She would not. She would not. All of a sudden, moon, she had an image of Luna coming up to a handsome stallion. Why only a stallion? A royal Canterlot voicing him into bed. It would not go away. Piggy watched her, seemed to become aware that last question was not going to be answered. "In case it's adopted, you said so." Her mind grasped onto that, heaved out the turbulent waters that with the last echoes of, "And now thou shalt satisfy thy princess, or face her wrath!" were pushed away with fervent hopes that would drown on the spot. She mentioned it once. The left wing began to droop. Piggy nodded, very enthusiastically. Curls bounced. The bowl pressed between her front hooves never shifted. "But maybe they did have a sun pony once, or lots of sun ponies because of how old they were. But I never heard of a male alicorn." "Join the fandom, you'll hear about 20 of them." "Not even stories. Well, not stories Eating Pony tells twice, or even once if you're a Billy. I had to sneak around until I heard somebody else telling one. But if there was a male alicorn, and the princess had a foal with him, the baby would be an alicorn, right? Unless maybe Celestia or Luna or Cadence weren't always alicorn, like you weren't always. So the baby would be an earth pony, or Pegasus, or unicorn, or because they're all kind of three." "No, it would make sense since she was an alicorn when she was bred that the baby would be an alicorn. You would have to be a complete and utter fool not to think that. You would have to be a complete and utter idiot to see a baby alicorn come from, say, Cadence and Shining and think, oh, that's impossible. You would have to be a complete buffoon, an idiot, a Nimrod, a complete Stonkenkeifer, a baka, a loser, a smidge upon public sanity. Do not think that just because an alicorn and a unicorn fucked does not mean they were going to get an alicorn baby. It'd be like not thinking that if a Kryptonian and a human fucked, they wouldn't have a half Kryptonian, half human baby. It's just common sense. Nobody at the right mind would be that stupid not to think that just because Cadence and Shiny Armor banged, they wouldn't be having an alicorn baby. What kind of moron would think that? Could the fall become an alicorn one day? Do you have a princess or a parent and our ancestor before you become an alicorn? And if Celestia and Luna weren't all these alicorns, who made them that way? Or did they change themselves? Or were they originally? So, what do you think? Well, Obviously, Luna and Celestia were born that way. They were inherited certain gifts, such as a stronger magical form, more power than a normal but unicorn like them could wield. Then, we can also infer that Twilight can become an alicorn. It means that also becoming an alicorn is something that you gain through great worth, or doing a great chore or task. Kind of like how if you work hard in, say, a fantasy story, you could gain a special extra power, a gift, because you have been so, full of verisimilitude. Hell, if you read some of the backstories, you would see that. If you read the comics, you could see that. But these are some things that you just don't need the comics for, or the books. A person like me could probably figure it out. But I've come to realize that there aren't many people who are like me. The first attack thought to get through Twilight's incoming migraine was zapping her into the mirror pool really be so bad? And a voice that made the prior one sound like it had just taken 5th place in the equestrian games on sheer raw health. Pinky, I've been thinking about this. Pinky told her in a matter-of-fact tone, as if every pony had been thinking about it, and she just happened to be the one that liked to get it out. Ever since you teased. Twilight's memory laced back, speared the first target to come into view. Pinky, these are fall questions. We got a changeling here! Twilight's a changeling! That's it! Nope. Stop the fic! Right there! Nope! Twilight's a changeling! I knew we were going to get to something out of our character beforehand, but this is just it! Hey! Lord Cocoon, I think you lost one! What? This nonsense, pink curls going everywhere. The buzz level still hadn't shifted. I know you are, Twilight. I asked him when I was a little baby Pinky. You asked it too like that. Everybody I know asks the teacher or their parents. We all got told the same thing. Full questions. Questions so silly you only ask them because you are teeny. There is no such thing as a stupid question or full question. Somebody like Twilight would know this. Or no one older cared what the answer was, or even what that question existed. You asked it once and they told you not to think about it, not to care. But it's Twilight, she would! Because asking it meant that you were stupid and you stopped asking you were smart. Because they didn't think about it and never lied to you. I'm thinking about it now. You make me think about it. I don't understand why you're not thinking about it. Yeah, why isn't she thinking about it? I mean, I can figure it out from Twilight's character that she probably did ask and probably did research into it, probably asked Cadence, but I'm sure this fix got a good reason for why Twilight didn't think about it. I'm not thinking about it because I asked my parents and teachers. That's not a good answer. Because they're just folk questions. They're silly. You only ask if you don't know anything, and it shows you don't know anything and haven't learned. But when you do learn and you don't get the answers, you just learn not to ask the questions. Who made the world? Why do the sun and moon have to be moved by magic? Because this is a fantasy world and you need that. Were the princesses always as they were now? And Piggy's question, was it once had been hers, it probably been once everybody's. Was it been dismissed and forgotten because it had been dismissed as being too silly to ask? But we know what made our world, because people did ask the question! But Piggy didn't care about what other ponies saw as silly. She just wanted an answer. Where do your eloquence come from? Piggy Pie repeated, and waited for an answer. Twilight was an alicorn, if just barely. If not on any level her mind and body, it depth to her desires wings fully understood, and I don't know. Maybe that meant it was time to ask again. Her right wing drooped, the flower tipped over. She barely rested to the sound of pumpkin and pound cake laughing as their tired parents escorted them into the bakery, smiled with weary pride at Piggy's progress. Letters to write, questions to ask. She could make herself ask them. Does this speak into words to Spike seems an impossible task? Perhaps something better said in person. But the smiling, reassuring, and suddenly also intimidating presence of the princesses? Where did the alicorns come from? And how did the newest one ask? Oh my gosh, you're right. Maybe the canon version of Twilight had so much difficulty, and she does dance cadence. Wow, didn't seem that all that complicated at all. Why is this fic having a problem? 3 days gallop outside Baltimore. A tan Pegasus with blue mane and purple eyes. Her flying bearing the strangest cutie mark Equestria had ever known. Stood next to the unconscious body of a canine, from was no longer adorned by a vest. One of the miserable tornadoes had carried the garment away, collecting along with branches and leaves. One of the bodies, it's so much, very much of the blood. Her front hose pounded on his rib cage. She cried out to it in surprising sorrow, in distress, pleading for it to wake up, to breathe, and comply with none of this. She screamed, and then fled, eyes streaming tears as her pain-racked hoofs repeatedly impacted the ground, as her wings stretched and tried to flap as they grew ever more purple, as her cutie mark burned. Folks, I don't think I'm going to like this.